the GAO report indicated that one of the best ways that we can mitigate the gap, especially as it relates to the polar satellites, would be GPS RO, radio occultation from GPS satellites. My question is, how significant is GPS RO to the numerical weather models that help us forecast weather? Dr. Voles, I'll let you answer that question.
Turn that over to John.
It's without doubt, it's in the top 10. All the studies, data denial studies around the world show that depending on which one you look at, it's number 4, 5, or 6. So it's very significant. Radio occultation falls right behind the microwave and IR sounders.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the Cosmic 2 program, which is a joint program between the United States and Taiwan, is fully funded for the first 6 satellites of the Cosmic 2 program. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And how many radio occultations per day would we get from a Cosmic 2 program?
The Cosmic 2 is as in whole is 12 satellites, two sets of 6, and from the combined set of those 12, you'll end up on the order of 10,000 occultations a day.
And the first 6, though, are set to launch by when?
Next spring, 2016.
And how many would we get from those first 6?
6 satellites, about half of that.
So 5,000 radio occultations
correct.
per day. And then, as far as what the private sector could provide or augment, is there a limitation on how many radio occultations per day would? At what point do you get diminishing marginal returns from every additional radio occultation?
It's a unique measurement type, which that saturation point is really high. We've looked at studies which go as 50,000, 100,000 a day, and there is a rollover, but it's not significant. So certainly, we're just potentially scratching the surface of the value you can get from radio occultations with the 10,000 a day.
The Europeans are at 128,000 and they haven't reached saturation.
So let's say the private sector, commercial satellites, if they were being launched right now, and of course we've got the challenges with testing and validation and calibration and all those things that go into feeding the numerical weather models. If they were able to provide that capability, that would in essence help us augment the data going into the numerical weather models, for example, to predict thunderstorms in my state of Oklahoma. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
And so if there is, right now, we don't have an identified limitation on the number of radio occultations. When you said it was in the top 10, if you had, say, maybe 100,000 or a couple 100,000 radio occultations, would that move it up to maybe number 2 or number 3, or is that a stretch?
Yes, I think it would come up. That is an interesting aspect, that the more you get. And I think we know that 5 or 10,000, you get a big improvement, and it just goes right on, 20 or 30,000. So it would help. So probably go higher.
Is it safe to say that if there is a gap that the GAO report is indicating might be more likely than some others might suggest, if the gap does occur, and the private sector has a capacity to launch satellites into space that could produce 40 or 50,000, is NOAA open to the idea, if those data could be validated and calibrated and fed into the numerical weather model, would NOAA be open to the idea of maybe purchasing that data from the private sector?
We've been in active communication with a number of the vendors who are proposing to launch and fly these satellites for us, and yes, we have been agreement that these data could be useful, and we would be open to using them as long as they meet, as we talked about, the criteria for reliability, dependability, and accuracy. So I've had meetings with all of those companies you mentioned up front, and actually we have a planned workshop in the end of April this year to sit down and show how we do our requirements and how they can match their developmental processes to work well with us.